This is Dr. Chris's Radio Horror program at 91.3 FM, WCW in Worcester, part of the Radio Horror 12th Anniversary Show. Also, don't forget, this is also part of the WCW Fund Drive. If you'd like to make a donation, go to wcw.org. Tonight on the show, we have author Peter Bracke on the show with us, who wrote a comprehensively large tome of Friday the 13th nonsense trivia, factoids, interviews, and every other thing you could probably stick into a Friday the 13th book many years ago, and it was re-updated in 2012 and then used in a documentary format later on. And now he's part of another documentary regarding our previous guest from last week, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, Heart of Darkness, Jason's weirdo, bizarro Friday the 13th entry. Thank you for coming on the show with us, Peter.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
What were you doing before the Crystal Lake book?
Gosh, I have to remember that back that far. I feel so old now.
So
it came
we're
out in
talking about like early
2005.
2000s, because I'm assuming you spent a couple of years on Crystal Lake before it was published.
Yeah, I was a writer. I went to film school out here in California at USC, and I always loved genre film, and that was my specialty, was horror. And I used to be an entertainment journalist, so I actually started a couple of websites, used to write for like Yahoo Movies, that sort of thing. And I wanted to do like, a book, a making of book. And I always loved horror. And I kind of just sat down, and for me as a kid, the big three franchises were Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Friday the 13th. And, but what was always interesting about Friday the 13th to me was, especially as a kid, it was probably the one series that was just completely kind of looked down upon by critics. There wasn't a lot written about it. I mean, maybe Fangoria got, a few articles when the movie came out, and that was it. But at least the first Halloween and the first Nightmare on Elm Street, they had some critical acclaim to them, especially Halloween. So they were usually considered as something worthwhile. So I just thought it was fascinating to kind of do a book on a series that just had been completely ignored, yet it was so well known and popular. I mean, even if you've never seen a Friday the 13th movie, if you show a hockey mask and a knife, everyone around the world knows what that is. So it was interesting to me. So it was kind of a voyage of discovery, and kind of perversely, it started as just like I originally thought, it'd just be like maybe an academic book or a smaller book, and I kind of laugh now. I thought, I'll do like 20 or 30 interviews, and it ended up becoming a coffee table book. I think I did like 200 interviews, and it was actually kind of fun going to publishers and pitching it, because I'm like, me and my agent were like, we want to do like for Star Wars, like we want to do like what you do for a Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, and do like a big coffee table book and full color. And they were like, what? Like Friday the 13th, like would anyone want that? And so it was kind of exciting to see it do well, just because, I always knew there was a fan base, and but now I think it's such a big deal with like all these horror conventions, and horror is so mainstream now. But again, back in the early 2000s, horror was still, obviously it was popular, but I don't think there was as much confidence that there's much of a fan market as there is for these kind of things. So that's a very long-winded answer, I think. I don't know if I even answered your question. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
What were you doing before the Crystal Lake book is what my question, the original is.
Yeah, so I was just an entertainment journalist. So I was just, I would do, I wrote a lot of magazine articles, and, again, I wrote movie reviews for websites and things. And it's kind of a big thing out here in LA. And you kind of, just freelance. And so you pitch magazines and stuff on articles, like, hey, would you want an article on this movie or that movie? And it's a little different now with the web. I did stuff on the web, but now, everything's so internet based. But back then, you could still make a living, writing just for magazines, for example. I'm not sure if there's even film magazines anymore, but things like Premiere and stuff were big at the time, and I guess we still have Entertainment Weekly and such. But so you do a lot of press junkets and red carpets and things. So it was a lot of fun, and a lot of movie reviews and stuff like that. So. That's basically, I think I'd done that about 5 or 6 years before I did Crystal Lake Memories. So,
was there anybody in Crystal Lake Memories that you weren't able to get, and even in the the updated version in 2012, that either they refused to, and I'm not counting anyone who died, obviously, that goes without saying. But is there anybody that you weren't able to get that was just like, I don't even want that listed on my IMDb?
Yeah, there were a few, and you don't always know why. So
They're too proud to have
because it
been in
doesn't
a Friday
matter.
the
I mean,
13th
I'm sure
movie.
they're not listening to this broadcast, but I'm sorry.
I said they're too proud to have been in a Friday the 13th movie.
Well, not always. Like one person, her name is Renee Jones. She was in part 6. She played Sissy, and she was on Days of Our Lives at the time. I think she might still be on the show, but she wrote back. She was very nice. She said, "Look, she just doesn't like dark things because of her religious beliefs, and so she just doesn't want to go in that space." So, and then there was another person. Her name is Rachel Howard. She was in part 3. She played Chili, and she a couple of cast members called her. She's a therapist now, and she was like, "I just don't want anything to do with Friday the 13th. Just don't want anything to do with it." I don't, you don't know why. Harry Crosby from the first movie. So there was isolated people here or there. Maybe that would change now. I don't know. But still, 90% or so or more people said yes. So I was thrilled. I mean, that's always going to happen anytime I think you do something with. You're talking about 12 movies and hundreds of people. Thousands, I guess, worked on these movies. I mean, invariably someone's going to say no. So
right, and I'm sure there's some people that wish they had changed their stories or something, or maybe somebody doesn't want to be in the book any longer due to courtroom battles going on right now. I'm sure both Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham could retract most of what they said in that book or that documentary or anything that they've said anything about Friday the 13th to, because it's being used against them in a court of law.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess I can say it. I mean, it's a natural thing, but yeah, I mean, I was contacted when the lawsuit started, and basically like, we're going to subpoena your tapes, audio tapes. I record every interview, so I have them all on audio tape, all in a box. So I had to turn those over. So anything and everything someone said, is part of that. So yeah, but they both gave a lot of public comments, and it wasn't like I was the only person to interview them. So
right, I mean, they're on the DVDs, they're on the documentaries, they're in magazines. It's like it's just funny how very nice and candid they are. Now they're at each other's throats in court right now.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame because we had a book
and they're not
party
being civil about it either. I mean, this is for it to be dragging on as long as it is. This is a bloodthirsty battle worse than any bloodshed Jason could shed in a movie.
Yep.
And I don't want to get hung up on the courtroom battle of this is going on, because we've actually had Shelley, who's been on the show, who's a lawyer, and he went over it just a little bit. But I just wanted your quick thoughts and opinions about it, but not to deviate too much.
Yeah, I guess what's a shame to me is we had a book launch party in 2005, and Victor Miller came up for that, and Sean was there, and that was the first time they had seen each other in a long time, and they seemed to really enjoy each other's company. There's actually a video of it that was taken. And so I think we all thought, like, maybe this will be like a nice patching up, and they'll reconnect. And I think it was like that for a while. I mean, it's really, I guess it just comes down to, Sean really believes that it was a work for hire, meaning basically, he kind of had the basic idea. He hired Victor as an employee to write this movie. And therefore, it's really not Victor's work under the eyes of the law, in the sense of that he owns those characters and things. And Victor obviously believes differently. And that's the kind of thing where, this is someone on the sidelines. I mean, the big thing is you just wish it would be resolved so they could make more movies and fans would be happy. But I understand each of their positions. So honestly, it's the kind of thing where, like, that's the law's going to decide. I wish I knew enough about copyright law. I'm sure Larry knows a lot more than I do, obviously. I honestly, I just wish everyone would. I guess for me, my feeling is, as you're older and stuff, like, you would think it would just be easier to, like, shake hands, do some sort of settlement privately, and move on instead of fighting. But that doesn't seem to be the way it's going. So,
yeah.
But again, I can't speak for anyone. So there's probably more involved than I know. So.
And to relate to Jason, and then just kind of get off this topic, Warner Brothers gave up, and I mean just gave up, rights to Freddy Krueger to the Wes Craven family.
Yeah.
They were just like, we're not making any movies because we don't care about this franchise. And honestly, we do not need more Freddy Krueger movies. I'm sorry. I'm behind everybody. I am 100% behind the people like, why do we need another Jason movie? Why do we need another Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street movie? God, we have 3 back-to-back Halloween movies happening, and I guarantee if the second one bombs out of the box office, they're going to course correct on that third film of this new trilogy they're doing, because the first one was okay. It was all right. I liked it, but it had its problems. But I digress.
Well,
Moving
what's
on.
interesting about I was surprised by the success of Halloween just because I didn't
Yeah.
know like the mainstream audience. I mean, obviously all the fans we know Laurie Strode and everyone knows who Jamie Lee Curtis is. But like you just don't know like for a movie to do that well, it does have to kind of cross over or get mainstream people interested. It can't just be the diehard fan base.
Uh-huh.
So I just don't know though if in the new movie if they created new characters that the mainstream audience wants to see continue. Like you look at something like Scream, when that came out, Scream 2 was a huge hit. It did just as well as the first one, and because the audience liked Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox and David, they like those characters. They wanted to see a part two. So for the new Halloween, like I just don't know if the new characters they created will have that same appeal. But I guess we'll find out next year because obviously Jamie Lee Curtis is an attraction. But do people want to see that story continue from the new movie? I'm not sure yet. Well, like you said, I don't know. It could be a big hit. It could not do well. But now they're bound to three of the two sequels. So I don't know what. Yeah, you're right. I don't know what they're going to do if the second one doesn't do as well. What they're going to do for the third? Yeah. So I don't. But then again, the new one it shocked me. I did not think it would make what did it make like $70 million opening weekend or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
It blew me away because H2O came out in '98 and that did well, but it wasn't like this, and that had Jamie Lee Curtis. So it just seemed to be the right time. But yeah, I was surprised that the mainstream audience was so interested to see it. Yeah, it's interesting.
How do you get started trying to put a book like this together? What do you start with? Do you just start with like the easiest people for interview? Because the book is mostly like 99.9% interviews.
Yes, yeah,
And
and that was a conscious choice. Yeah,
yeah,
it's actually thanks to Larry Zerner. It was his because originally I was going to do it like a normal narrative prose book, and then he turned me on to a book called Live from New York. It's an oral history of Saturday Night Live, and I heard the word oral history, but I wasn't that familiar with it. But the turning point for me was just starting doing these interviews, and I realized no one's heard from these people. The fans, they want to hear from these people that have never been talked to before, especially with Friday the 13th fans. We were kind of so, I don't say dumbed down, but when you were younger, it was like, ew, Friday the 13th stupid. The critics thought it was terrible. Again, it wasn't covered by the mainstream press, so it was very exciting to hear from these folks. So that's kind of what the main decision was. Like, I'd rather tell it in their words because no one wants to hear me blab on. I mean, the
right.
fans would rather hear from Amy Steele than from me. So that's why I did it that format. But to answer your question, it was hard because it was back in the day before social media, at all, and Facebook. Like a lot of people now are on social media, so you can find people. Back then, I literally had to call the guild, so Screen Actors Guild and Directors Guild, and say I'm looking for Amy Steele, or do you have information? Then I actually had a fax. There was email was around, but not a lot of people had email like today necessarily. I had to get a fax machine, so literally I would spend days and days and days writing an individual letter to Amy Steele and sending a fax to her agent or whoever SAG gave me the number for. So it was a good year of just tracking people down. And some people were tough because if they left a business, again, it wasn't like today where you can go online and do People Finder. Like imagine trying to find a guy named John Shepard. He was the star of Part 5 when there was about 3,000 John Shepards in the country, So it was difficult. So it was a lot of that. So it really wasn't easy. Again, Friday the 13th wasn't like, some of the newer films that have bigger stars in it, aside from Kevin Bacon, I guess, and Crispin Glover. There really wasn't any breakout. Like there wasn't a Jamie. Every movie didn't have like 2 or 3 Jamie Lee Curtises. So
Right. I mean,
yeah,
Kevin Bacon
most of the people.
and I guess Derek
Yeah,
Mears, I guess you could say, has a career because he was Swamp Thing recently, and he does appear in a lot of mainstream stuff. So from that movie, but of course
yeah.
also
But the remake didn't
Jensen.
happen. Yeah.
We also have Jared Padalecki too. I mean, he's the star of
Well,
Supernatural.
see, but when I did the book, that movie didn't come out. The remake didn't come out 2009. So my
Right.
book came out before that. So the remake didn't exist. I mean, when I started the book, Freddy versus Jason hadn't come out.
Right.
So people thought the franchise was dead. So actually, in the middle of doing the book is when Freddy versus Jason got greenlit, and that was a huge help because Sean Cunningham was really wonderful. He's been really supportive to me, and he did the forward for the book, and he called New Line and really helped get a lot of things done. We were able to use the official logo on the front cover thanks to New Line, and you got a great support for getting photos because normally you would not get that number of photos in an affordable way. I mean, most people don't realize, but if you go to a studio and say, "Hey, I want to use a couple photos in a book," it usually can be like between $300 and $500 a single photo. So if you multiply 600 photos we have in the book times $300 or $400, you can get the idea of how expensive it would be to do a book like that. So we were really able to get a great deal and a lot of support from Paramount and the new line. And he really went to bat and said, "Hey, this is good for the franchise. Give these guys a deal," because there was no way we would be able to do a book like that if we were, charged the full rate, so to speak. It just wouldn't be economical. But so that was great. And again, I'm sorry, I'm getting off on tangents here, but I think I lost track of the original question. Oh no, yeah, finding people. But so it was like being a private detective almost. But also, what happens though, you start interviewing people, and they say, "Oh, I'm still in touch with so and so," and so then you start. The more interviews you do, it does get easier because usually people keep in touch. So like Joseph Zito, who directed 4, had kept in touch with Adrienne King from the first movie, and so he'd connect me with her, and so on and so on. And some people get married, like a lot of the women, not a lot, but some, still worked in the industry behind the scenes or things like that. So that was helpful, and so it was always exciting to like find out, oh my God, so and so is married to so and so, and so you contact him or whatever and say, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with somebody else. So yeah, it's kind of like a treasure hunt, so to speak. But it was a lot of work, especially the first couple movies, because most of those actors were on the East Coast in New York. So a lot of that was I had to go through theater companies and try to find people doing plays and send them literally handwritten actual physical letters or faxes. Again, there's no texting or email or social. So it was weird to like send a letter and then wait like 2 or 3 weeks and hope you got a reply. So it seems so old school now, but it was only 15 years ago, but it's very, very different.
What I heard a rumor that up until this book came out, Adrienne King had pretty much disappeared from life due to stalker problems, and she's come on my show and talk about it. But this book helped her come out and become a part of the fan community.
Yeah, that is true. But again, she was not listed anywhere. Like SAG, we have no information, and we can't give information. The thing about SAG and the guilds is they'll give you information if the person wants it to be known, or they're still active, or whatever. But if an actor says, "Look, I don't want to be contacted," they won't give you that. So there was nothing. So luckily, Frank Zito, Joseph Zito, Frank, director of Part 4, he kept in touch with her through her husband, who worked for a company called Tadeo, did sound and stuff. He's like, "Oh, I'm still in touch. Let me give her a call." And so she's like, "Look, I haven't talked about this in forever. We met, and she was super sweet, and she told me the whole story about the stalker, and she just was like, I didn't realize they were really fans." And again, it's hard to believe now, but again, this is early 2001. There was no Freddy versus Jason. Jason X hadn't done well. Most people thought the franchise was dead. For most of the actors, I contacted the first response was like, Friday the 13th, you want to talk about that? Like, it was just surprise. Like, it was a thing they had done a long time ago.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of merchandise either.
Yeah, it was a different thing. So that's really what the response was. It's more just like I can't say that word, incredulity. But anyway, they were just incredulous that anyone cared. So that was kind of fun. I'm like, no, you have fans. There's a big fan, base out there. And then I think she did a convention. We did a convention in New York with her and Betsy Palmer. And I think it's actually on one of the DVDs. That was like 2004 in New Jersey. And so she was really moved by that. She's like, I just didn't know people cared, and that I meant something to people. So it was really nice to see that. So that probably was the best thing about the book. It was just, it's nice that these people, realize they had fans.
Adrienne aside, because I've never gotten this vibe off of her, and I've had her on the show, and I just met her again at Rock and Shock, which I passed on to her that you were coming on. Yeah. She says hello.
Hello. She's so sweet.
I don't think she's going to listen to this, but
well, that's true.
People who come out of the woodworks, and you can tell me if I'm off base or if I'm wrong. Just also, remember we cannot swear because it's going to be broadcast.
Okay.
And we haven't yet, so that's good. Damn, hell, crap, whatever. That's fine. Some people, again, not Adrienne King, when they find out there's a fan base and they haven't given a crap about the film that they were in, all of a sudden have dollar signs in their eyes and all of a sudden act like they've always been part of it, and it's a kind of annoying because they become a diva. And names will never be said, but I've had a couple on the show, and I had a couple people on the show used to represent people that were like, this person was doing nothing until I found them, and then I helped them, and now they're the most impossible person to work with. They don't deserve a $50 autograph, or they don't deserve like the luxury lifestyle they think they should get. They have never cared about the fans until all of a sudden they went to cons and started making money. Now they don't really care about the fans, they care about money. And I'm like, that sucks.
Well, I will say that's probably the biggest change I've seen. I've never been a big convention person. I'll be honest. I mean, I'm not again. Even when I was younger, and I guess back in the '80s, it was like the Fango cons and stuff. It's just, autograph. It was never an interest. But yeah, I definitely. It seems like it's an explosion. Like, I mean, Comic Con is huge now. I remember going 15 years ago for again when I was a journalist, and it was popular, but it wasn't like now. Now, like the Walking Dead stuff, I mean, people are charging like $100, $200, $300 for a
Ugh.
picture. It is a business now. Like the bigger stars that before would never do a convention, you're seeing, everyone has a convention rep, and you're seeing major stars do these kind of things. And yeah, I guess that is true. I mean, I know for a fact if I try to do Crystal Lake Memories today, there's no way. I mean, I think some people would want money for an interview or something like that. I'm sure that would happen. Yeah, it is a business for a lot of people. I mean, it's not my thing, but fans seem to like it, right? They like to meet the stars and get autographs and things like that. Maybe being in the business, I'm jaded. When you start doing it and interviewing people and press junkets, it's like celebrity on. But I'm sure it's very exciting for people who don't get a chance to meet these people. I mean, and a lot of fans are like, oh my god. I mean, it's a huge moment for them to meet a Jamie Lee Curtis or something. So I don't want to be cynical about it. So yeah, I guess it's worth it to a lot of people. But yeah, certainly it's become a big business. So, but
What is the
yeah, I'm not too much in that world.
what are some of the differences between the 2005 and the 2012 version, besides the remake, obviously?
Well, the biggest thing is an ebook. You don't have to worry about space. Like a physical book, you only have a certain number of pages. So I could add a lot more photos. I added extended interview, and then I added about 15 new interviews with folks that weren't available originally. Or I did some follow-ups, like for example, before he passed away, Danny Steinman, the director of Five. That's probably the most controversial chapter of the book. In terms of a lot of '80s success in making that movie. And I just, he really was taken aback by some of it. So I gave him a chance to kind of do what we did, a follow up, and he just responded to some of the, things people had said. And so we were able to do that. We added video and audio. So like when you go to the ebook version, the 2012 version on iPad, you can listen to the soundtrack. You can watch actual video clips from the Chris Lake, that was shot. So that made it interactive and just cool things like, I was able to put the complete Gene Siskel review of Friday the 13th, the one where he basically tells you should write Betsy Palmer and tell her what a horrible person she is for doing this movie. So we're just being able to build things out a lot more. So I actually prefer the ebook version just because it is expanded. I mean, I love physical things, but the ebook probably in terms of content there's a lot more content just because, again, you don't have space limitations. So like I can put a still gallery, you can go click on a single image and swipe your finger left and right and see 15 images on your iPad. There's no way you can do that in a book. So yes, that's the main thing. But then the hard thing is, as an author, like you think when you do something that it's like, oh, this is definitive. Like I did the book and it's done. And then you realize here it is 10, 15 years later, there's a whole new generation of kids who are seeing the movies. There's a remake. There's a different perspective now. Again, we've had these people who've now spent 10 years doing conventions and meeting fans. So if you talk to an Amy Steele today or an Adrian King, they've had so many experiences since I talked to her for the book that you realize it's kind of depressing that it's never definitive. Like there's, it never ends, like, because time keeps going. So it's cool at one hand, but then sometimes I look at the book and I'm like, man, is it outdated? I don't know. It's still cool, but yeah, nothing's ever definitive. So, if I did the book now, I'm sure I could add another, punch of quotes from people, but at a certain point you got to let it go. And so hopefully the book is like a starting point for people now. If you're new to the series and you want to find out, you can read the book and then find other stuff. But yeah, so but the ebook is probably a little more comprehensive. I guess that's the main difference.
Ah, okay. What about what's going to be your role with? Excuse me. Sorry. What's going to be your role with Heart of Darkness?
Yeah, so I heard the idea kind of started germinating, I think, almost 2 years ago, and Adam Marcus told me about it. We were doing some other stuff, and that was cool because again, with looking at the book, even the documentary, the Crystal Lake Memories documentary. I mean, the book is Jason Goes. Each movie is only about 24 pages, and then you take away pictures, it's maybe 12 pages of text. The documentary segment, I think, is 24 minutes. So it's really not a lot for a single movie when you think about it. It seems like a lot all put together, but so the thing that fascinated me the most was really meeting fans at conventions and stuff. Is I grew up on the movies originally when they came out, so my experience with Jason Goes to Hell was, it was the ninth movie. I'd seen all the other ones, loved them as a kid, so I didn't really like Jason Goes to Hell. And I told Adam that, and he knows. And
I'm sorry.
so it
Wait
was
a minute.
like,
Hold on. It's Jason Goes to HE double hockey sticks. Get it? Because
yes.
he wears a
Oh, I'm
hockey
sorry.
mask.
Yes.
Ha ha
We can call it
ha.
Jason
Moving
Goes to
on.
H. Yeah.
Bad jokes are bad.
I didn't realize that HELL was a bad. I guess you can't say that. Okay.
I can say hell. It's fine.
Okay.
If it's in the Bible, I can say it.
Yeah, it's capital H. That's right. So Adam, so what was interesting to me was just how my experience of Jason Goes to Hell was based on the fact that I wanted it to make me feel like I did. I wanted to make me feel like a kid again, like the original movies did. And then this new generation I'm talking to are like, sometimes the first Jason movie they saw was Jason Goes to Hell, or they saw them out of order. They didn't have that sort of preconception or baggage, if you will. So I see, fans who love it in a different way or see it totally, see things in it I never saw. So that'd be interesting to look at a movie 25 years after it came out, and a movie that was sort of controversial. So that'd be a cool kind of emotional journey to kind of take a deep dive in. And then they got Eddie involved, the director, who's great, and I worked with him on some other stuff. And so I'm basically just coming as a producer, and I'm doing all the interviews, so I'll be conducting the interviews. Since I interviewed a lot of the folks before, so I just feel like if fans want something, Friday the 13th fans, I'm so grateful. And so if there's interest, and I want to help out, so I'm just happy to be involved, and I'm excited to see what Eddie does with it. And hopefully we'll start the interviews soon after the Indiegogo is complete. And so I'm excited to see. It's kind of a voyage of discovery. Now there's a lot of cool stuff with Adam. Is he was around because he was a kid. He was a friend of Noel Cunningham, Sean Cunningham's son. So he was around the early days, in the 70s when with Steve Miner and Wes Craven and Sean Cunningham all together, and there'd be barbecues at Sean's house, and Steve Miner would be flipping burgers, and here's little 8-year-old or whatever, Adam Marcus. And so it's really cool to see kind of the birth of the whole filmmaking family that created Friday the 13th. And then here's this kid, 23, who comes back and does the ninth part. And so there's a lot of interesting emotional things too. I thought it'd be interesting to explore that you can't do in a book. So I'm really excited to see what happens with it. So, and to be a part of it. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. And I love seeing the people. It's great to interview folks again. And Adam's such a great guy, so energetic and positive. So it'll be a lot of fun, I think.
Let me ask you a question. In terms of Friday the 13th books, there was a young adult book series in the 90s by a guy named Eric Morse.
Mm-hmm.
Full disclosure, I've had somebody on my show that told me there is two different Eric Morrises out there. There is the actual author, and there is a guy pretending to be him who's a bit of a psychopath.
I honestly, the only one I know is a guy named William Pattison, I believe his name is, who's the author who I interviewed for the book originally. That's the only, I guess it's the I understand it is, his author name is Eric Morse. Uh-huh. That's the only person I know. I'll be totally honest. I've never heard another story that there's two of them. This is news to me. So I haven't
tell
talked
me
to him
about
for
this,
years.
because this is always a book series that I loved when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about who this author is, and we'll see if they're the same person or not.
Well, I honestly don't know too much. It's I just remember seeing those books too and think, oh, that's, I wonder how that happened. So I remember I interviewed him for the book. This was, again, 2002, 2003, or 2003 would have been. So, again, we're talking, 16 years ago. So I remember him telling me a little bit of the background, how he came up with the ideas, and he wanted to do a fifth book. And that's really it. I'll be honest, I've not talked to him since. So I don't, has there been other books? I don't think he's ever.
No, there's only the 4 books. Yeah. And on his website, he listed
Yeah,
like a
I think he
story.
puts videos up, doesn't he, of himself? He's done like interviews on YouTube. I thought.
Okay, so
William.
maybe this is the same. Okay, so there was like somebody else saying, "No, this isn't who this is. I am really this person. This person's posing as
Oh,
me to be a scummy Summerson."
oh,
Yeah, I
I've
wasn't
never
sure
heard
if you were
that.
aware of that. Yeah,
That sounds like its own mystery. That sounds like a Lifetime movie in the making, right there.
yeah. So I wasn't sure if you were aware about what that was all about.
No, I was not. Yeah, no, I haven't heard from the Eric Morse I talked to anyway, and yeah, again over a decade. So, wow, I'm curious now.
But in 2005, I was at Newbury Comics in Leominster. It doesn't exist there anymore. But and I was like walking through, and I saw the book there, and I was like, "What is that?" I didn't. I was not involved in like horror fandom
Hmm.
at all on the internet. The only fandom I think I was heavily involved in was like GI Joe, He-Man, Transformers, stuff I grew up with or whatever, like hardcore because I had money to spend and burn. I was into
Sure.
video games. I was into horror movies, of course, or whatever, but I wasn't involved in the fandom of horror
Hmm.
movies until I started doing the show. I'd gone to like maybe a couple horror cons or whatever, and I was just like,
Hmm.
wow, I knew there were other horror fans out there, but this is cool. And I worked at a video store, so I knew there were horror fans, but I wasn't involved in the fandom, and that was like ouch. I think that was my first exposure outside of like DVD bonus material, of course. That was my first
Sure.
exposure to like Friday the 13th fandom. Because you're right, in 2005, there wasn't really any merchandise out. It's not like the mega
No.
giant. Well, there's no merchandise out right now either. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
We probably went
Yeah.
over
Well.
that, but
Okay, but there's some stuff with the lawsuit. Well, we'll talk about that. But
yeah,
there's some
but
misconceptions
there's
about
no,
that.
yeah, there wasn't the merchandise machine of Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and yeah, 2003 we had Freddy versus Jason,
Hmm.
but again, there was what like McFarlane toys and
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
T-shirts. There wasn't like the bevy of it like today.
No. Mm-mm.
I
That's
mean,
when
there
it
was
became a
Jason
thing. It
costumes,
took
but
off.
that's whatever. There's always Jason costumes.
Hmm. Yeah, sure. That's it. But a lot of them are homemade. But yeah, no, it was dead. I mean, that's again before Freddy versus Jason. It was completely dead. Like it was Friday the 13th was an old thing. It was like I mean, most people didn't even know Jason X came out because it wasn't given a really strong release by New Line. I think it didn't come out 2002. Freddy versus Jason definitely helped. But yeah, I feel like around 2005, I don't know if that's right. Things really started to take off with the merchandise. Now there's everything. There's lunchboxes and stuffed toys and games and apps and things. It's crazy. So
But it seems like every single horror movie that has like more
yep,
than one film has to have like merchandise. You know what I mean? It's like crazy.
yep, yep.
Something like Trick or Treat, you're shocked about how much Sam stuff is out there.
Well, I knew it was hilarious when they started having all those. What was that series? The Human Centipede like stuff, and you
Oh
start seeing
God,
the Human Centipede necklaces and stuff. I was
yeah.
like, wow, okay. But yeah, there's Jason bobbleheads, and God knows that's what I mean. Like it really is. Well, I mean, everyone knows what it is. Michael Myers, Freddy, and although I don't know what you think, but I feel like Freddy is maybe I don't want to say faded a bit more than the other two. Like it doesn't seem like his presence is around as much. Like now, the new Halloween and Friday the 13th, I feel like those are maybe a little more
I
popular in terms of merchance than
I mean,
Freddy.
I
I could be
think
wrong.
Chucky, yeah, because Chucky has been putting out movies like
Yeah.
solidly since
Hmm.
since forever. It's like every few years there's another
Yeah.
Chucky movie. Every few years there's another Leatherface movie. Every few,
Yeah.
and like Halloween, Nightmare, and Friday are the only ones that have had big gaps. And even like
Yeah.
Halloween, really, I mean,
Yeah.
2018, Rob Zombie's movie was 2010.
Yeah.
8 years isn't that bad of a gap. It's not
No.
like I just
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. The Friday and then of course you were also involved in the documentary, the mega documentary about Friday the 13th, which is pretty awesome. And I don't even know if that can be sold anymore.
Yeah.
I
Can't.
know.
So, but there's a misconception with the lawsuit. It doesn't prevent anything from happening. Like the book is still out there. Even the video game. I'm not sure where that thing came
You
up where they're like, we can't do
you
content.
can't update the video game, but the video game is still
Well,
being sold.
I don't know why. So people forget that video game was updating content after the lawsuit started. There was no decision made on the lawsuit, and now all of a sudden they're like, we can't do content. But the judge hadn't even ruled yet. So I don't know why all of a sudden they decided they can't do content anymore. But they had been doing content after the lawsuit. So none of the stuff we do, the movies, the book, all the stuff is still available to sell, all the merchandising. So I'm not sure why the video game what's going on there, but it certainly hasn't prevented the book or anything else from being sold. So I'm working on a new book actually, and probably gets involved in a little bit, and there's no problems in getting stills or anything else. So I'm not quite sure where that thing came from, but that's probably a question for their lawyers. But they were putting out new content even after the lawsuit started. So then they stopped midstream even before the judge made his ruling. So I'm not sure what happened with that. I wish someone would buy the game from them and start it up again because I enjoyed the game. I want to see new levels and new maps.
Yeah, so. they said that they can't. They got to cease and desist. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. That sucks because we have the book has been fine, no problems there. It's still for sale. You can go to Amazon and buy it and all that. So I know they're still making other products. So yeah, it sucks. And then they've been singled out. I'm not sure what happened there.
Well, I mean, Nika also got singled out. NECA.
Oh, did they? Oh,
and NECA also got a cease and desist. They announced that a few months ago. They have a cease and desist on any and all. Sell what you got, but no more.
Well, I'm crossing fingers. They haven't bothered us yet, but maybe it's because that they're making new things. Maybe that's what it is.
Maybe you guys are considered educational too. You guys are protected by educational law.
Well, no, but I mean, I have license. We have licensed photos. We use the Friday logo with the trademark on the cover of the book. If you notice, I mean, that's all came from New Line. That's all been.
Or your book hasn't been in the zeitgeist for a little while. That's
what I mean. Like, we were lucky. No one's paid attention. But interesting. So well, crossing fingers. No cease and desist yet. So,
besides Heart of Darkness, what are you currently working on before we let you go, Peter?
Well, sure. Actually working on a new book. It won't be announced till next year, but I guess the only hint I can say is think 90s horror, and that might give you a hint.
Is it a book about Scream?
That might be part of it. It's. I'm excited because it's the first time anyone's done a book
half the Scream movies were the 90s, the other half were in the 2000s.
Yes, there's other movies involved. Well, I think I know You Last Summer, Urban Legend. All the remakes started up like Texas Chainsaw. Think of that whole era. So that'll give you a hint. I'll probably have more to tell in mid next year. So.
All right.
But I've done about 120 some interviews for this.
I would like a Scream book. I actually work. I mean, I'm like a crappy kind of independent filmmaker, but I have a documentary book about New England filmmakers that made their movies here in New England. They had to be born here. Cool. They had to live here. Those stipulations kind of change a little bit, but they had to make the movie here, and they had to live here. They couldn't have just been from California. They come over here, make a movie, move to California. No, you have to live here. You have to make a movie here. I don't really care if you're born in Timbuktu, Japan, or Antarctica. It's called the New England Horror Filmmakers, and it's kind of languished in development hell because I'm a crappy writer. So, but I want to get it published, and a lot of people have always said to me, nobody knows who these people are. Nobody cares about this. Who is this guy? What has he done? Yeah. I'm like, well, he won all these awards. I'm like, did he win an Oscar? Is he on the cover of Fangoria? Well, Peter, thank you so much for coming on the show with us. We hope you have a happy Halloween because it's just Halloween
you guys
season.
too.
I really do appreciate it. I've been a longtime fan of yours with this book and then the digital. I look forward to your other contributions coming up to Heart of Darkness as well.
Yes. I'm very excited. And go to the Indiegogo. We're very excited about it. And the campaign ends on Halloween. So
yeah, definitely. Perfect. And do you have any convention appearances coming up?
I don't. Again, going back, like I personally don't feel comfortable charging for autographs. I'm happy to go and sign for free, but no one invites me. So I would do it. So we'll see.
But you were probably on tour back in 2005. But again, I wasn't into the zeitgeist of the fandom at the time. So, but if you're ever in New England, look us up or whatever. Yeah, I'll have you sign my my iPad because I don't have a physical copy of the book anymore.
Well, I will fix that and I'll bring you one if we ever meet.
All right, awesome, dude. Yeah. Thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.